a lot of super successful people have got there from as a result of what you could call addiction. At the core of addiction is wounding, is pain, is suffering, is hurt,
Yeah.
and the aversion of.
Yeah.
And like I see it in so many top tier athletes. I don't know if you've watched like the Beckham
I haven't actually
documentary.
seen that yet, but I
It's
really want to watch. I've
dope.
heard great things.
But just like I can watch people and I can see signs. I can see somatic giveaways of
Yeah.
particular somatic expressions of AKA trauma. So you see him super OCD. So what I see is a dude who his life, his identity was football. And that was pushed on him by his dad,
Right.
then by what's his name, Ferguson, the manager. You know, all these like sort of father figures in his life. His entire like worth was built on his success as a football player.
Yeah.
And now that he's retired, you can still see that energy in him, but he doesn't know what the fuck to do with it.
Yeah. Legends, welcome to another episode of the Interchange podcast, and thanks for joining me, your host, Ben Lowe. Now, before we get into who today's guest is, I do have a very small favour to ask, as I always do, and that is if you have been enjoying the podcast, even just the slightest little bit, if you can go and hit that subscribe button and share this with just one of your friends that you think might get some benefit out of it. Because as you know, the more eyes and ears we can get on this podcast, the bigger and better guests I can bring for you guys, and in turn, the more value we're going to be able to deliver. But over to today's guest, I'm joined by the amazing Drew Wild. Brother, thank you very much for coming on.
Oh, man.
Now, Drew is an addiction and trauma specialist who actually suffered with addiction himself and was able to use his battles to now help so many men and women to overcome theirs. So, brother, thanks very much for coming on. I really appreciate it, brother. Tell me, just straight up, okay, when it comes to addiction, there's such a negative connotation around that word, right? And when people think of addiction, they think drugs, alcohol, gambling, pornography, all that sort of stuff. But my understanding around addiction is that it can really, I guess, affect so many other areas of life as well. Is that right?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I do a lot of speaking and often get invited also not just into spaces that are like addiction focused spaces, but mainstream audiences.
Yeah.
And I'll often start my talk with, put your hand up if you identify with having an addiction or being an addict.
Right.
And like no hands will go up in the room. You know, there's like 500 people in the room, right? Or you might get that like overzealous dude or like chick who's all like a year in recovery and they're like, yeah, they're like so proud of it. They're like, fuck yeah, me.
Yeah.
And like, that's dope. That's cool as fuck. But yeah, no hands go up. I'm like, okay, interesting. And so I'll ask a series of questions after that. But basically I get to the point where I'm like, okay, so put your hand up if you know that you have something in your life that you lean on and use as a coping mechanism when you don't want to be in the full experience of your lived reality.
Right.
And every single hand, if they're being fucking honest with themselves, every hand in the room will go up.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, wow, that's really interesting. But none of you put your hand up when I asked if any of you had an addiction. And I was like, so what's the difference? And it's just the stigma attached to that word, that word addiction, right? We orientate that word to, the rock bottom junkie sticking himself with a needle, the fucking dude puffing on the end of a glass pipe, or the alcoholic, homeless, sitting in the whatever, living in the park, hand out, panhandling and drinking themselves to death, basically. And it's not that. Like, if everyone, I truly believe addiction and distraction are synonymous. They're one and the same. They're the same thing. The only separation is the orientation or the association we have to that word.
Yeah, right.
And like, if we ask anybody, what's your thing? What's your coping mechanism?
Yeah, what do you use to distract yourself?
Yeah, they'll say, porn, fucking shopping, gambling, scrolling, fucking shitty dating apps, shitty relationships.
Yeah.
But there can be, just as much, health, what we would, some people would call healthy addictions, or they're viewed as socially acceptable. Gym, 100%, counting cows. One of my business partners makes a joke as he got off meth and GHB and then got hard out into the gym, but it was so OCD on his macros that he'd be weighing out his protein, had to be 180 grams, it'd be 181 and it'd be chopping off a gram
just cutting that little bit of
it's
steak out.
Interesting, maybe that energy's still there, right? The overworker is celebrated.
Yeah.
And I see this, and it's been coming up in conversation a lot recently. A lot of super successful people have got there as a result of what you could call addiction. Right. At the core of addiction is, we'll go a little bit deeper later to understand this furthermore, but at the core of addiction is wounding, is pain, is suffering, is hurt, and the aversion of.
Yeah.
And I see it in so many top tier athletes. I don't know if you've watched the Beckham documentary.
I haven't actually seen that yet, but I really I've heard great things.
But just I can watch people and I can see signs. I can see somatic giveaways of particular somatic expressions of AKA trauma.
Just for anyone that's listening, somatic means within the body.
Bodily expressions. So you see him super OCD. So what I see is a dude who grew up, and you can see it in the whole doco, grew up, his life, his identity was football. And that was pushed on him by his dad, then by, what's his name, Ferguson, the manager, all these sort of father figures in his life. His entire worth was built on his success as a football player. Yeah. And now that he's retired, you can still see that energy in him, but he doesn't know what the fuck to do with it.
Yeah, because he hasn't got that
and
outlet.
It's come out as OCD, bro. You watch him around the house and it's his kitchen's immaculate. His wardrobe is laid out and everything's just perfect.
Yeah.
And I'm wow, that's really interesting. That's the similar energy still playing out, but he just doesn't have that same outlet anymore that he had when he was playing football. I see it in people like Tiger Woods. I see it in, a lot of top tier businessmen, business people, businesswomen. I've worked with a lot of them, who have made millions, billions. And they'll sit down in front of me and I said, are you happy yet? Do you feel enough yet?
There's just no fulfillment.
Do you feel worthy yet?
Yeah.
But no. That's why I'm fucking sitting in front of you. I've got $1 billion in my bank account and I want another. And another, and another.
The next big thing, right?
Yeah, the chase, the hunt, the pursuit that's that same driver, the compulsion of addiction.
Wow.
And so it's everywhere.
Yep.
It's fucking everywhere. It's a global phenomenon. You want to talk about fucking pandemics? It's addiction. Look at addiction.
Yeah.
And it's wild, bro. It's kind of scary, man. I was laughing the other day. I was watching this reel. This is just coming through now. This comedian was talking about, I don't know, how old are you?
31.
31. So you're I'm 35. We grew up kind of in a time where growing up, we definitely didn't have barely had video games.
I don't know technology what I do now.
Yeah.
I was about 10 when I had my first PlayStation.
Yeah. Maybe, right?
Maybe, yeah.
We had tapes, CDs,
Walkmans,
VCRs, shit like that, right? And this
recorders.
comedian's cracking up about how mindfulness, right, is such a big thing. He's what? He's making this joke. He's we had no fucking choice to be mindful. If you're catching public transport, you sat there. Yeah. And you were mindful,
Yeah.
You watched a VCR. You had to rewind the VCR. You had to wait for that to rewind. You were mindful.
And it was a slow process.
And he's going through all these different things about how we literally had no choice Like there were a lot more opportunities and spaces and gaps to be with ourselves. This day and age, most people, it's kind of scary. It'd be interesting to see how it affects, you know, this gen coming through now, who has had tech, internet from the day they were born.
So many distractions.
Yeah,
right?
Stimulus, dopamine hits, instantaneous gratification.
The you know, within your palm.
Instant gratification, like you've got Uber Eats, like you can have your food there in like 2 seconds. Like if you're in the US, you could order something off Amazon, it's there within 2 hours.
It's crazy, hey?
You know, it's wild. And so, it's just a trip. It'd be interesting to see how the effect that has on, the human psyche in another 10, 20, 30 years.
Yeah.
And that's because most people would wake up, you know, for anyone listening, like I can guarantee what's the first thing you do when you wake up? For people listening, right? Pick up your fucking phone.
Pick that bad boy right up.
Right up. That's it. First thing they do.
Yeah.
And then they're scrolling, and some people, you know, they might be watching the news, and the news is all fucking doom and gloom and bullshit, and then they're like scrolling Instagram and they see fucking Sally in Fiji and they're like fucking got to go after their shitty 9 to 5. And so like they're just, the whole like vibes just already crashing from the minute they're like open their fucking eyes,
today, right? It's just, it's not serving them.
Exactly. And, but not only that, there's no time to just like be with self. It's one of the scariest things for humans on the planet, full stop, is to be with themselves.
Which is why so many people avoid it, right?
Yeah. And so they'll wake up, they'll scroll, they'll stay on the phone, they'll jump in the shower, they might have a podcast or music playing when they're in the shower, they get in the car, they drive to work, they've got the radio going, they've got work, they're consumed by work. I'm not doing that these days, but legit. Yeah, they have their lunch break, they're scrolling, they drive home, they're listening to shit, then they get home, they're putting on Netflix. And it's just constant consumption of well, not even consumption. It's just this constant distraction of self, from self, in a form of escapism. And so, I truly believe that distraction and addiction are synonymous. And then you can draw the line, obviously. It's all the relationship you have with said vices, and when for you is enough. You know, obviously, you know, I chose drugs and alcohol.
So that was your vice. That was the thing.
100%.
Yeah.
And I'm kind of grateful in that sense, because I chose something that like fucked my life up real good and real quick.
Oh, it was like getting hit by a Mack truck. Right?
It was like I had like multiple, like I shouldn't be here. Basically, and I'll get into my story, but
for sure, bro.
You know, I imagine, like, I think about the dude who's like, or the chick, you know, it's very common for women as well, porn addiction, right?
Yeah, man.
It's like that porn isn't going to physically kill you. It's not going to physically kill you.
There's not really
It'll suck the fucking soul from you.
Yeah, of course.
But it's not going to physically fucking kill you. And so it's like much harder, and it's going to take a lot longer for you to get to your tipping point of like, I don't want this in my life anymore. I can't have this in my life anymore. This is creating more problems than it what used to be giving me solutions.
Yeah.
And that's the other thing we also need to understand about addiction, is that for most people, it's the solution to their problem. It's the only solution to their problem.
It's the only thing they can see that's going to obviously solve that problem.
100%. Yep. They don't have any other tools in the arsenal. And so to reach for whatever it is, the gambling, the porn, the scrolling, the drugs, the drink, the food, it's literally the body trying to survive.
Yep.
It's doing its best to block you from the pain you're feeling inside of yourself, or the wounding you're feeling from inside of yourself. And so it's actually a survival mechanism.
That's what it comes back to, right? It's trying to protect us, because as
100%,
our highest priority is to survive, even if that means doing something detrimental to ourselves in the meantime. It's going to solve the problem that is in front of us, right?
Yeah. But unfortunately, you know, that there's so much stigma attached to it, whether it's it started off as like it's just a moral failing, and a lot of people still see it as that. You're just a flawed human being.
That's right. That's the big thing that comes with it is like the shame attached to it.
There's so much shame attached to addiction. And that's why a lot of people don't speak about it because of the shame.
That's why we're having these conversations.
Exactly, man. And so there's a lot of shame attached to that, attached to the stigma of what that, addict, quote unquote, air quotes, looks like. Where was I going with that? I lost my train of thought. Anyway, it's not what people deem it or think it is. Like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And we need to start realizing that.
Yeah.
And when we can realize that, we can actually have a lot more. Oh, that's what I was going with. Was the so a lot of people used to and still do, like judiciary system still treats it as a moral failing.
Yeah.
There are a few places that have like drug and alcohol courts that have a little bit more understanding around it, around addiction, but it's still not at like to the core. Our penitentiary system, judiciary system still treats it as a moral failing.
Honestly, there's no rehabilitation in jail.
None whatsoever.
Nothing
Nothing at all.
You just start slapping with the same people.
Yeah.
Like
you 9 times out of 10, you come out 100 times worse.
Well, that's it. When I was in there, I just connected.
Yeah.
I knew where to get more drugs.
100%. There's more drugs in jail than...
There's not more drugs in jail, but there are drugs in jail.
100%.
And there's such a concentration. You're around people that are shooting up using the same needle in front of you, trying to go to the toilet for a piss.
Yeah.
It's fucking wild in there, man.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what it is. It becomes a networking unless the person actually wants to change.
Totally.
There is no rehabilitation in jail, and the system is failing to that degree.
And I'll circle back. So there's it used to be like there's a moral, it's a moral failing and you're just a fuck up. Then was like the kind of like the AA 12-step movement came in, and that gave a little bit more grace, and it looked at addiction sort of through the lens of as if it was a disease. So you have a disease for which there's no known cure.
Yeah.
Which is still unfortunately far too mainstream for my liking. I think it's a lot of bullshit. Yeah, we can look back to that.
That's something that I actually don't agree with either.
Yeah, I don't agree with it at all. It's a load of shit.
Yeah.
And then there's how I view it, which is let's stop looking at the thing, at the addiction. The addiction is not the problem, and it's just the symptom, and let's look at what's fueling that. And so, going back to jail.
When are you going back?
Hopefully not anytime soon.
Yeah.
Or I would go back. I'd go back to fucking support so many people in those space, 100%. But so I've had some mentors that used to go in the States to some like maximum security prisons, and so there's something called the ACE score. So the ACE score is adverse childhood experience. Basically, is what ACE stands for.
Talking about trauma.
Yeah, talking about trauma. And so it's pretty simple. I can't remember exactly what the questions are, but it's along the lines of like, have you ever experienced physical, verbal, or sexual abuse? Have you ever witnessed any of the three? Have you ever had one or both parents with addiction or substance abuse issues? Have you had one or both parents incarcerated? And there might be one or two other questions, and like they'll ask these questions, so they'll have everyone standing in a circle and ask these questions, and it's like, take a step forward if you've experienced this. You see literally everybody take a step forward. Ask the next question, everybody takes a step forward. Ask the next question, everyone takes a step forward. It's like, no wonder you motherfuckers are in here. Like, you grew up in an environment knowing nothing other than hurt, pain, and suffering. And so what I'm trying to get at with this is that when we can understand trauma, and I'll explain trauma in a lot more depth, because it's also extremely misconstrued, and there's a lot of stigma around trauma as well, because it's a fucking buzzword these days.
Yeah.
But when we can start to see the world and anything almost through a lens of trauma, that allows room and space for a lot more compassion and understanding. But what I don't want people to get twisted is compassion doesn't necessarily excuse someone's behavior.
Gotcha. Yeah.
So that we can understand why they may have behaved in a particular way doesn't always excuse why they behaved in that way. But if we can understand it, then we can rehabilitate it.
Right.
So it's like a lot of these people that are sitting in these cells, they're a byproduct of their environment they grew up in.
Yep.
If we knew that and we can treat that, the success rate of them walking out of those cells and then actually wanting and willing and like desiring to create a different life for themselves would skyrocket exponentially. But that takes so much time and energy and resources, and we don't really give a fuck because they're just the fuck ups and then the scum. Don't get me started on these fucking systems. Especially if you're in the States, it's even worse because it's fucking, they're making money off so much of this shit as well. But yeah, man, it's everywhere. It's fucking everywhere. And people they're kind of oblivious because they've never looked at it through this lens.
Yeah. And that's, I guess, a really important thing to start on is actually changing the scope at which people look at addiction through. Yeah.
Well, that's been my fucking whole passion and purpose and life force and reason for being here for the last 5 years, really, bro. I was like, how can I change the scope of how people see and treat addiction?
Right. And so was that something that came up for you? Because you said that you struggled with drugs and alcohol yourself. Was that something that came up with you during your time, I guess, struggling with addiction itself?
Yeah, 100%. So long story short, I can see I've been in processes and different practices and things with different various mentors and teachers along the way where like this stuff, we're set up from the beginning, man. Like the resilience of humans is fucking insane. It's crazy. Like we're kind of almost set up to fail from day dot. Like I've been back to experiences in like the womb. So basically what happens, what's the easiest way to explain trauma? Trauma is, I love to call trauma undigested life experiences, trapped or stored stress in the body,
dealt with, right?
Emotional imprints. These are all just other ways of talking about trauma.
Right.
But something that's not spoken enough about trauma is, so there's definitely acute trauma, which is very real. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it's very real, sexual assaults, just living in extreme poverty and neglect and physical abuse, violence, things like that. That's what we would call acute trauma. And that's what most people associate as trauma. What I know and believe to be 90% of trauma is what we call developmental trauma.
The stuff through like the first 7 years of life. Right?
Exactly that.
Yeah, man.
So developmental trauma is basically just not getting your basic needs met in the way that you needed them met as a kid. Not only that though, this is influenced by our primary caregiver's nervous system at the same time. So this is where it gets even more layered.
So if they're stressed or they're angry, we take that on as well.
We feel that because we're attuned. So we're usually, that's our mother.
Yep.
Because that's 90% of the time our mother is our caregiver. They're the one that's feeding us, looking after us, taking care of us. And so before 7 years old, we cannot regulate our own nervous system.
Yes.
We cannot. It's just not physically possible. So we regulate off our primary caregiver,
and feed off whatever,
aka our mother. So like even in fucking utero, bro, I've been in processes where because my mum's, this is where like a lot of shit started to make sense for me. My mum was 40 when she had me, and she had 2 miscarriages before me.
Yeah.
So you could imagine, even in pregnancy, how stressed she was, the fear she was experiencing, the terror. I know for a fact that she felt quite alone because she was living in Christchurch in New Zealand, and a lot of her family was in Auckland, another city. Didn't feel supported, and there was this undercurrent and tone of like, I fucking need you, like I need you to survive. And I was feeling that from like before I'd even come out into this fucking world, bro. I don't know what it's called. I didn't turn around I can't remember what it's called. So I was a cesarean because I didn't want to come out.
What do they call it? Breach?
Something like that. Yeah. Like I literally didn't want to come out. I was like, that feels like shit. Why would I want to come out into that world? And so again, obviously I didn't know all this stuff at the time. This is with like, years of healing and my own personal development and journey and stuff. But if I do look back, I can feel that dysregulation in my nervous system even just from a very young age. Where like drugs and alcohol started to come in. I found my dad's stash. My dad was the man. He's a super successful businessman, top of the corporate ladder in the aviation industry in New Zealand. But his thing was smoking weed. Not heaps. At all, but like it would have been like I don't even remember seeing him ever smoke. But I found his stash, and so I imagine for him it would have been just take the edge off. Friday night I would have been in bed or something. And he probably rolled a joint and fucking watched TV or listened to some music and just chilled out. So I found his stash at like 11. Actually, before that. I remember porn was probably before that.
And you found.
I remember watching porn. I think it was like an uncle's Playboy or something. I found.
Finding fucking boxes of videos in my fucking cupboard because I couldn't read it. I was about 11 years old.
It's about the time when you first get left home by yourself, right? And you just go rummaging. You're like, what can I play?
And I found fucking titty girls. I'm mad about
found
it.
Fucking pornos and weed.
I just want snacks, Dad.
100, And so I remember finding porn, and I remember just again at the time I didn't know this, but if looking back and feeling into it, I felt like just a sense of calm, a sense of peace, and like now I know I can equate that to like a sense of like regulation in my body and my nervous system. For whatever reason, I just felt this like stillness, and then found weed at 11. I remember smoking weed for the first time with my cousin. I would have been about 11 years old. And again, the same thing. I just remember being like, holy fuck, I feel calm. I feel still. I feel what I thought normal was. Like, I feel like the chatter in my head stopped. Like, I feel light. This is like, this feels good.
It's like the baseline for it. I actually feel alright.
Yeah, totally, 100%. And so it just started from there, man. And I didn't get like super out of control. Like I wasn't fucking smoking weed every fucking day from 11 years old. But teens, like there was definitely always forms of escapism. Like my whole crew coming up through high school, we smoked a lot of weed. It'd be most weekends. We drank a lot. But again, like that was just what.
That's what was done, right?
So that was just what that was what we did.
Yeah.
All of the fucking 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys just, we went to school. Look, I was fucking pretty good. I was pretty decent academically. Played a lot of footy, rugby union. I put in like minimum effort at school, but like still got decent marks. I was one of those annoying pricks.
I was the opposite. I was like, I didn't get great marks. I just fucked around in class.
I was always the class clown, which was also for me, looking back now, knowing my core wounding, which I'll get to as a result of growing up with the mother that I grew up with, was just always seeking approval. I needed everybody else's love and approval from outside of myself. So I was like 100% class clown.
Looking for a bit of validation.
Oh, fuck. Fucking, we got called by our last name at school. So it's like, wild, fucking wild. He's a funny cunt, that sort of thing. And then, anyway, fast forward, drinking, partying, wasn't out of control, was all completely like, again, normal, quote unquote, in comparison to like all my friends and peer groups and year group and things like that. And it was just ingrained in, it's Aussie Kiwi culture. Unfortunately.
A big part of the way we got brought up.
Massive. Then, so I had a long-term at that age, long-term like young love from about 16 to like 20. And I traveled. So she was a year younger than me. I left school and I traveled and I worked overseas, worked in the UK, travelled, and then came home with a bit of an ego, thought I was a bit cooler than I was, fell in with who I'd sort of deemed the cool crowd, and we were all into like hard out into drum and bass, like it was like music was our life, gigs was our life. So along with that also came, you know, heaps of recreational drugs, ecstasy, all that sort of stuff. Yeah. And she just got put on the back burner, complete back burner, and treated her like shit, unfortunately. And yeah, anyway, got to a point where she did break up with me, and rightfully fucking so. And it fucking crushed me, like killed me. It was a super toxic breakup. As I suppose most breakups would be at 20 years old. Like, we don't know how to communicate our pain, and we don't know how to communicate full stop, don't know how to feel. Well, that was the biggest thing, was, man, I didn't know how to feel.
And didn't want to, right?
And so I was experiencing like heartbreak, which is, you know, some of the deepest pain like most people will ever go through. And I didn't know what to do with that. But what I knew worked really well to get away from that was drugs, was alcohol, was drinking, was partying, and sex. And so yeah, I just fucking ran amok for, it's probably, shit just escalated real quick. It's probably a couple of years. And yeah, got to a point where I was like literally living in my car, driving from dealer to dealer, bottle store to bottle store, just drinking or drugging to oblivion until I passed the fuck out. Wake up, do it all again. Didn't know what it was, just knew I couldn't stop. Had no idea, no concept of what addiction was. But it very temporarily took away the pain. Took away the hurt.
And that's the thing, right? It's that instant gratification. It takes away everything, you don't have to feel it, and then, but it robs you later on.
Well, unfortunately, it was, then I can't remember Gable's exact definition. I had it on my phone just recently. Actually, I was trying to send it to a client. I should know it off by heart at this stage. I fucking worked so much with Gable. His definition is, an addiction is manifested in any behavior that a person finds temporary pleasure or relief in, but suffers negative consequences as a result of, and does not give up or cannot give up despite those negative consequences. So yeah, shout out to Gable the goat. Yeah, man, so fast forward, I ended up in rehab. Fucking rehab was dope, bro. I loved rehab. Rehab was sick. I was probably, I don't know, I was 21, maybe 21 when I was in my first rehab. I guess that was my first experience of kind of like learning about myself, getting to know myself.
Yeah, it's almost like a bit of a personal
figuring out,
journey.
Figuring out a little bit more about myself. So I had some of the best laughs of my life because it was the first time I was surrounded by other people that had gone through a shared experience. And because I literally thought I was the only person on the fucking planet that had ever gone through what I had gone through.
Yeah.
So to be able to sit around, we had like a smoker's table, sit around the table having a dart, and just sharing some of the most fucked up stories you could possibly imagine. Like if I told a stranger on the street, they'd be like, what, you're an absolute psychopath. But to share it with some of these people and someone to turn around and be like, oh, me too, or fucking they double down on something else, and you're just having like, these, it's like this breath of fresh air. It's just like, whoa.
I'm not the only one.
I'm not the only one. I've always said that like stories or shame or stories shared in safe spaces just eradicate shame. Or just to hear those words, me too, just absolutely eradicate shame. And it was just like this breath of fresh air. I was like, fuck, it's not just me. I'm not alone in this. There are some other people experiencing this. So yeah, rehab was dope, but again, it was I've always questioned things, bro. I question everything. Absolutely everything. It's just in my nature. And I love that about me. I don't flaw that. I'm a curious dude, but so I was always asking why, and I was always asking the counselors why me? Why am I here? Like in theory, I have a lot of friends and had a lot of friends that were fucking doing a lot more shit than I was. They're not sitting here.
Yeah.
Why am I the one here? And their go-to answer, because it was a 12-step based rehab, was, well, number one, you just need to surrender and accept And there is a layer of that, which is there's some truth to that.
Of course.
But it was always, you've got a disease for which there's no known cure. I'm like, okay. I mean, you guys are the fucking professionals.
Must be right. You gotta
you guys know a lot more than I do.
Yeah.
I'm just a 21-year-old kid. You guys are the trained counselors or whatever they were. I don't know. I don't think they were. I don't think they were psychotherapists at all, but or psychologists. I think we had a psychotherapist for meds. I got loaded up on heaps of meds at rehab.
That's a big thing that happens in jail.
Yeah.
Man. It's like they just load you up to sort of numb you out anymore. It's like, well,
Seroquel?
you're withdrawing from this Seroquel.
Yeah, they love dishing out the Seroquel, bro. Yeah. Fuck, I got put on. Yeah, I got put on antidepressants. I got put on Seroquel. I got put on. Oh, and so rehab and detoxing, particularly for alcohol, because alcohol is one of the most dangerous,
of course,
drugs to detox off. They put you on Valium.
Yeah, Valium's a big one.
Diazepam. So they use that because it hits the same GABA receptors. So they use that to detox you off alcohol. And I remember taking Valium for the first time, and I was like, "Oh, where's this been my whole life? Holy shit!"
Yeah.
And again, nervous system stuff. Like, I felt still.
Yeah.
I felt calm. I felt at rest. Like, I was always the dude, bro. If you saw me like fucking 20 years ago, and I still have a bit of it today, but like I'm okay with it and I've integrated. But like, I couldn't sit still in a fucking chair. If you asked me to sit here and do a podcast, I'd be like, yeah, cool. Can we do it walking? Like to sit still didn't make sense. Like, I was the leg jiggler.
Yeah.
I've got a mate in the UK who calls anyone like it's experienced addiction like the natural born leg jigglers.
Yeah. Tapaways, yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, it just didn't sit right. Didn't feel true, but again, I just was doing what I was told, basically. And so yeah, left rehab. I maybe stayed clean and sober for, I don't know, it wasn't long, but it was like 9 months max. And that was only because
too bad, right?
I wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
But I was 21, 22.
Yeah.
We're still partying. Most of my mates still at uni or just left uni, and I had a job in the radio industry. I worked for like the party station New Zealand, George FM. So like that was just a recipe for disaster because I was in that crowd, in that scene, 100%. Yeah. Then I got a job in sales for a liquor company. Yeah. All these unconscious things we do just to like accommodate our behaviors.
So it's all good. I'm working for this company. It's not going to become an issue.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyway, stayed off it for a bit, and then I started sort of drinking again. It was all right. Like, it wasn't out of control, and it got to this weird place where even like family and friends just kind of accepted it and weren't questioning it. I think they maybe were just like, oh, maybe we was just young and sort of moved on and grew out of it. But it just got worse and worse and worse. And my, I guess, routine was, and this went for years, it was like, I call it the merry-go-round, was insert trigger here. So either something triggered me, hurt, pain, emotion that I didn't want to deal with. Yeah. Or it could have just been as simple as like a bro, like, hey, yo, you want to go for a drink? Something like that. It was like playing Russian roulette, bro. It was never a drink. It was either a weekend or like 3 months.
Yeah.
And a hospital visit or an accidental overdose. Like that was how I lived my life. And then I'd hit that bottom, and then whatever process I had to go through to get out of that bottom, sometimes I could just crawl out of it. I'd also developed a real heavy Valium addiction and dependency at that stage as well. So yeah, was just either detoxing or out of hospital or whatever it was, and then started doing all the right things again. So started getting back to meetings and exercising, eating right, working out, just surrounding myself with the right people again, and then I'll get complacent because I was feeling good. So I'd
Yeah, that's right.
coast.
You start to feel good.
Yeah,
You're
so
like,
stop
"Oh, it's
doing
just
all
one
the
drink."
things that were fucking looking after me.
I call it the little bitch voice, right?
Yeah.
You get that voice in the back of the head. It's like, you've been doing so well, Drew.
Yeah.
Let's go and do that thing you've
Oh,
been
yeah,
trying not to do
100%.
and see how I'm just testing myself.
Yeah,
And
definitely.
you justify it to yourself
Yeah.
however you can, but it's just literally that other subconscious trying to get you back in that comfort zone, right?
Yeah, and the human psyche is really good at forgetting pain, man. It's trained to forget the hurt, forget the pain, forget the suffering, and glamorize the good times. Yeah, we've got sneaky psyches that's the human mind. Human mind's a trap, man.
It is.
Get out of the head. That's the biggest problem.
Right? Yeah. Out of the head into the heart.
Yeah. And so yeah, that was my merry-go-round, bro, for years.
Wow, bro.
And then that I'd stay maybe clean and sober for anywhere between 3-6 months, and then just do it all again.
Yeah.
In between all this, when did my dad died? My dad died, I think I was 26. So he got diagnosed with a brain tumor.
Oh, yeah.
And so we knew it was coming. Like basically, the first time they went in, they took as much out as they could. It wasn't cancerous; it was benign, but it was really aggressive. And so there's a little bit that was always wrapped around like a vein or an artery or something like that. So they always had to leave a little bit in, and so it'd always come back.
Yeah.
And so, 26, Dad passed away. Again, more hurt, more pain, more suffering, more heartbreak, that I had no idea what to do with.
Right.
I still definitely grieved and cried, and, I was more in touch with my emotions than your average bloke, I would have said.
Yep.
But still, didn't really necessarily fully go into that because, again, I was an addict. So I just had these escapes. So Dad passed away, and he gave me two gifts in his death, and one was sort of this whole adage of your health is your wealth, and that was unconsciously. He passed it on to me because he was very sedentary. He wasn't like overweight or obese, but he didn't work out. He didn't move his body.
Yeah.
He didn't really necessarily look after himself. High stress job. Yeah. Super high stress. I truly believe he wasn't in a relationship that he actually enjoyed, if he was being really fucking honest.
Emotional stress there as well.
Yeah, 100%. Wish he was around to have that conversation with him, actually. Anyway, so Dad passed away, and then, the other gift that he gave me was, so health is your wealth, and in some of the conversations that we had before he passed was just like, I think he wished he did things a bit differently.
Yeah.
So he's just like, Joe, fuck everything I've ever told you, because my conditioning from my, I guess, socioeconomic fucking background was like, you go to school, you go to uni, you get the degree, and you climb the corporate fucking ladder. Yeah. And he's like,
white picket fence story.
Yeah, pretty much. And he's like, mate, do whatever the fuck makes you happy. Get out of the trap. Just figure out whatever that is and to go and do it.
That's a beautiful thing to get from him, bro.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, man.
Anyway, I found myself in sort of the health and wellness space, and did really well in a company that I was working for with that, and went on my own massive health journey, which is usually a lot of people's pathway into their development, right?
I started to become PT. I'm going to help other people
it's
get
so
fit.
Interesting. It's so many people's pathway. Yeah, I went on this massive weight loss journey and lost a shitload of weight. And the company that I was working with and was associated with, which has had a real heavy pillar and value set within the company on personal development as well. Yeah. So I was always in different conferences and seminars doing personal development, like personal growth, with some of like the world's top leaders in that space. So it gave me a taste of something other than 12 steps. 12 steps was all I was exposed to in that kind of space.
And for a lot of people, that's probably all they do see, right? Because that's the
100%.
like the age-old solution to addiction.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Go to the rehab, go to an AA and NA meetings, and then
keep going to a meeting every day
make
until
sure
you die.
And if you don't go,
if you don't go to a meeting, you're gonna die.
Going, right?
Yeah. Oh, dude, don't get me started.
We could get started.
Right, we could. A 12 steps is phenomenal.
Yeah.
In the sense of like, just if you're getting off the ground, just to be in a room full of people sharing their stories.
And feeling that vulnerability, right?
Oh, 100%. Just knowing you're not alone,
Yeah.
having people just welcome you with open arms, giving you fucking love, cheering you the fuck on, telling you can do this. Like, the core of the 12 steps is pretty fucking phenomenal as well.
Yeah.
If you go through the 12 steps, like the core ethos and message of the 12 steps is amazing. There's a few areas I don't believe it goes deep enough. But yeah, like I was like a year in, I was living in Wanaka, New Zealand at this time. I was sitting in these meetings because it was a small, it's pretty reasonably small New Zealand town. I was sitting in these meetings, bro, and I was just looking around and I was just like, fuck, some of these people look miserable. Like they had, 15, 20, 30 fucking years up. Like, but you don't look fucking happy.
Don't look like you're thriving.
Like, you don't look like you're thriving. Like, I wanted more than that. But anyway, I've jumped the gun. So I'm working for this health and wellness company, but still very much in my cycle of addiction.
Yeah.
I'd run and set up a pretty autonomous business, online business, so I could fucking, go into my cycle and my business would more or less kind of look after itself. And then I think it was like some sort of top sales. There was like some comps and top sales, and I won. Like when I was on, I was fucking on. And I ended up winning an all expenses paid trip to Las Vegas.
Yeah, sick. That sounds terrible.
Dope.
That sounds terrible.
Fucking best place for me. Let's go to Vegas, baby.
With the business pays itself.
Yeah.
How old were you at this point? Like 26, 27?
Nah, I would have been 20. I want to say 28. I think. And this was the start of my final demise.
Still haven't crossed that threshold yet, right?
Nah. So, yeah. Anyway, ended up in Vegas for whatever reason. Unconsciously was there like 5 days before any of my team members. So, like, unconsciously, I knew I'd made all the promises in the world to, including myself, that I was going to do this sober.
I think that's the hardest thing about addiction, right? Is you make these promises to yourself because you've broken so many promises to yourself in the past.
Oh, it means nothing.
Promises,
yeah,
right?
It's meaningless.
There's no integrity to self,
totally.
Let alone other people.
100%. Yeah, what's really cool real about that the other day is that, we're so used to breaking our own trust. Is stop setting such ginormous fucking goals where you're going to set yourself up for failure, and just start with like one thing a day, and use that one thing a day, and nail that one thing a day,
anchor that,
and so you can start to rebuild that trust with self. Anyway, I fucking got off the plane, got into a cab. Cabbie turned around and looked at me. He goes, "Bro, do you smoke weed?" I must have just been giving off that energy, right? And I'm like, man, I haven't smoked weed in years. And he's like, oh, it's legal here now. He's like, do you want to go to a dispensary? And it was just, boom, gone. I was like, yeah, fuck it. It was like, when in Rome. Yeah, say less, let's go. Yeah. So into the dispensary, I got some gummies and some bud. I was chewing on the gummies, ended up just wandering. I was like high as a kite walking through the fucking casinos. Then they started handing me all the free fucking booze that they give you. So within another 2 hours, I was wasted. Yeah, and then with another 2 hours, I had mates, hookups that I knew had been and spent a bit of time in Vegas. And they said they'd given me all the hookups for Coke. So I had like 2 8-balls of Coke. And I was fucking just gone.
See you later.
See you later. Our keynote speaker was Tony Robbins. And I was like off my face. It was mayhem. Not gonna lie, I had a great time, but it was definitely the start of my demise. I remember came home through Hawaii. It was just like I barely remember Hawaii. I was like drink driving a hire car all through Hawaii. I remember getting on the plane coming back to New Zealand, and the air hostess, like, cause I was getting so many drinks, she ended up literally she just like got fucking sick of bringing me so many drinks. She just like brought me like 12 miniatures, and it was just like, here.
I'm sick of seeing
Yeah,
that.
just fucking do your worst. Comb the fuck out.
Yeah.
Basically.
Go to bed.
Yeah, go to fucking
Why won't
sleep.
you just go to sleep?
Legit.
Like shaking you like a baby.
100%.
Go the fuck to sleep.
Yeah, got off the plane, bro. Got back down to Wanaka, where I lived in NZ, and just started drinking myself to death, bro. I moved there to get away from everything, like hard drugs.
Are they harder to access there? And
Yeah, way harder to access. Yep. But just like every little town, there's still always like 3 fucking liquor stores.
And if you want to, you can sniff it out, right?
Oh, definitely, 100%. But yeah, booze was the thing that always held on to my ankle at the end of the day, because it was just the easiest and most accessible.
Yeah, that's the big thing, right? There's literally a fucking bottle everywhere.
Oh, bro, like this town was a small town. We had like 4 liquor stores.
Yeah. What do you do in small towns?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I just started drinking myself to death. I was drinking between 1 and 2 bottles of vodka a day. I just wake up, drink to pass out again. That was all I wanted.
Yeah.
I wanted oblivion. I didn't want to die, but I didn't want to be awake. So I was just like drinking to that place of absolute oblivion. Like complete blackout. And everybody knew what was going on because they knew my pattern. So they knew that if I was disappearing, if I was off the radar, I wasn't answering calls or texts, then I was gone. Yeah. But they also knew that there was nothing they could do until I was the one that reached out. And so I had a mentor in Wanaka, and I don't know what it was. I don't even remember. I would have been fucked. Like I was like a cooked shit, man. Like I was like too paranoid to even leave my room, like pissing in the corner of my fucking bedroom, like spewing down the side of my bed, like just in a cesspit of my own fucking filth. Yeah. And finally got to a point where I messaged a student. I'm like, bro, I'm done. Help me. He came around, scooped me up, fucking cleaned me up, cleaned me off, and got me to the doctors. I went through a detox process at home before I went back into rehab, because I think it was a few weeks before I could get into another rehab, but they had teed up a rehab. Went back into rehab so it must have been 28. And that's when the switch flipped, bro. And then, I was just like, surely this pathway of healing or recovery or whatever you want to call it can't be harder than the life I'd created for myself.
The pain became too much.
Yeah, it's like this choose your hard sort of moment. And so I was like, fuck it. And I just went all in on me. Yeah. And again, that moment's different for everyone, but for most people, it's some sort of a flick. Yeah.
Well, you get the call, right? You get that call multiple times usually. Yeah. You know, there's multiple things that pop up, and then when finally you get that, it's like tap on the shoulder, then you get hit by a Mack truck.
100%, yeah. Talk about that all the time.
Yeah, man.
It's finally done, and I was still had my online business, which was all cool, and still had that level of personal development going on, which was amazing. And then, like I said, had that moment where I was just looking around the rooms. I was like, there's got to be something more to this. And then that's where I started exploring. I ended up at a workshop. Shout out Preston Smiles, best fucking personal development workshop on the planet, the Bridge Experience. Okay. When he's coming back in October, 100% go. Recommend? Oh, dude, I've sent all my clients there. I send all my mates there. I've sent family there. Yeah, it's insane. I kept seeing people walking into this workshop and coming out in their lives just doing a fucking 180. I'm like, what the fuck is going on in that room? And going in as well, I also always had the conscious awareness, consciously, I could think about this. I was like, I'm either really okay with my dad dying, or I've just never been in an environment to actually feel it.
Yeah, never allowed yourself to.
So that's right, exactly. So I understood it, but again, still hadn't had the somatic opportunity.
Yeah, it's like
to
here's
to
the rug,
release
let's
that.
just sweep that over there.
Yeah,
It'll come up later. It will come up.
Oh,
But
100%.
I'm not dealing with it right
And
now.
that's the reality with trauma, is that like
Exactly
it
right.
will only present itself when the body's so fucking smart, man. The body will only reveal and allow these things to come up for processing when it knows that you're safe enough to do so and that you can hold it, and it's not going to re-traumatize you.
That makes so much sense, bro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so anyway, we did this one practice. It was like super basic practice. They do it at heaps of different fucking workshops. And basically split the room in half. Half the room, like you close down your eyes and you open your arms up for an anonymous hug. And so the other half of the room just picks a stranger, and you got to kind of sink into this hug. And so P's like facilitating this whole experience. And obviously there's like emotion provoking music and things in the background.
Yeah.
And Preston's narrating over the top, and he said one thing that just cracked me and just opened the fucking floodgates. He goes, now imagine as if this was someone you wished you could hug. And that was enough for me. My whole body just went,
Yeah.
and just bawling my eyes out, just
Wow, bro.
weeping. I was like, oh, there it is. There it is.
Yeah.
Thought it was there.
Yeah.
Just didn't know how to get it out.
Yeah.
And yeah, heaps of stuff. So first couple of years, man, was a lot of dad stuff, grieving dad, heaps of emotional processing around dad, just more his loss. Anger, like fuck you for leaving me, like shit like that, 100%.
Yeah, 100%.
Fuck you for not being here.
Yeah.
Again, like just super valid emotions. And this is what I think as well people get a bit twisted, is we put emotions in a hierarchy when all emotions are actually all the exact same, and we need to welcome all emotions. No one emotion is good and no one emotion is bad. They're just a fucking emotion, and it's part of being a human being.
I actually heard something the other day which was really, I guess, made a lot of sense. And it was like, there's an inverse relationship between happiness and sadness, and until you can feel sadness, you won't be able to feel the full depths
100%.
of happiness, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And like you said, so many people trying to avoid feeling these negative emotions. I'm going to be happy all the time. You have that toxic positivity.
Oh, it's toxic. Don't get me started on toxic positivity, bro.
But it's okay to feel
Oh
the shit.
my God. You have to feel the
You're
shit.
human. It's part of the human experience.
You have to.
Yeah.
The aversion to creates more suffering. So yeah, that just popped and cracked me open. And then also a lot of their practices were sort of like somatic based trauma release type practices. And so I started following that whole pathway. I'd heard about Gabor Mate, started soaking up all Gabor Mate's work, did a retreat with Gabor Mate, and then just realized, like, when I started to actually learn and educate myself around trauma and what trauma really is, I was like, fuck, this is everything. Everything I've ever been told is a crock of shit, and in its simplest form, all human suffering is rooted in just the human ability to feel and process our emotions. Full fucking stop. Like, there's your little soundbite for you. That's it.
Yeah.
It is this human inability to feel and process our emotions. No one teaches us this shit.
No.
And in fact, we're taught the opposite, or shown or conditioned the opposite.
Yeah.
We're like taught not to feel, not to cry, not to express.
It becomes unsafe to actually
100%.
feel and cry.
Yeah,
and
depending
especially
on the
men,
environment
right?
you grow up in.
Men, big boys don't cry.
Cultural.
Don't show vulnerability because that's
all
weakness.
of that. You're a pussy.
Yeah, jail, right? For me was a big one of that. It's like, if you show vulnerability or weakness, you're going to get stabbed. You're going to get robbed. You're going to get jumped.
You're going to rolled. 100%. You're like, prey.
That's it. You become the victim.
Yeah.
You know?
100.
And so, like, we have a societal norm that vulnerability is a weak thing, and then obviously feeling emotions, especially for men, are a negative thing.
Yeah.
But as you said, it's part of the human experience. It's something that has to be.
And it is, and I'm just going to be real. It is more prominent within men, and that's why. And it's just, you can fucking look this up statistically. Statistically, male suicide rates are so much higher than women, and that's because women and find much more comfort in just being able to, like, talk shit with their girlfriends and open up and talk about what's going on for them.
Yeah. Vent.
Vent.
Which is exactly what it is, right? It's letting the shit out to allow for more space.
100%.
Yeah, man.
So, anyway, that opened me up to the whole world of fucking what I call the choo-choo fucking trauma train. And I was like, okay, this makes sense. This is actually the answer, and why the fuck is nobody talking about this and correlating the two things between trauma and addiction? Because this seems so obvious. This seems so black and white. I'm experiencing some sort of sensation in my body that I don't want to feel, and I'm using something to cover it up.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I went on this massive journey, massive pathway of healing and starting to understand trauma as well, obviously educating myself with trauma. And yeah, then, so looping back, so obviously in the first few years of my healing process, a lot of my stuff was dad stuff. And then I knew there was going to be some mummy shit because me and mum had a fucked up relationship growing up. All through my teens, like there was just this hate. I fucking hated her.
Yeah, man.
Like hatred for her, but I didn't understand why I hated her.
Yeah.
I just knew that I fucking hated her. Yeah, absolutely hated her. Hatred, rage, anger. Like to the point where I wanted to like get emancipated from my family. I was trying to get dad to like literally emancipate me from my fucking family. And again, didn't really understand that until I started peeling back the layers of developmental trauma. And so what at the core, and this is where everything started to click and make sense to me. As I explained earlier, I was feeling all of this terror, this, this fear, her fear.
Yeah.
All of these energies that I was taking on board. So already I had, like, from the day I was born, a super dysregulated nervous system.
Yeah.
So no wonder I was looking for something to pacify, to soothe.
Yeah.
Not only that, the energy she was emitting and the unconscious, I guess let's call it like a frequency that she probably wouldn't have even been aware of, was one of I need you.
Is that a codependent relationship?
100%.
Oh.
So it was basically I was experiencing the definition of conditional love.
And that was due to the fact that she'd lost two
100%.
children prior to you.
Yeah, exactly that.
Wow.
And so I experienced like literally the definition of conditional love. And she was also extremely narcissistic. So it was like her way or the highway. I felt like I had to earn her love. I had to behave in a particular way in order to be loved. I had to dress a particular way in order to be loved, to fit in, to meet her standards, right? So that's the definition of conditional love.
Yeah,
She'll tell you,
love you if you do X, Y, and Z.
100%. She'd still swear black and blue to this day that she loves me unconditionally. And again, I'm not falsing my mother here. Like, yeah, she definitely fucked me up. It's my responsibility to go and do the healing.
Yeah.
She's not going to change.
You can't change circumstances.
She's never going to change.
Yeah.
What is done is done. She was still doing the best she could at the time. But we can't stop there. That's where a lot of people will stop, especially when they start looking at like the influence of the parents.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of structures. I don't want to go too deep, but there's a lot of structures at play that don't want to place the blame at the feet of our parents. So it's not so much blaming them as such, but it is still the admittance that like I actually had some very real experiences that weren't okay.
Yes, it's like
as a child.
Their role
100%.
Right? Yeah.
And so it's just like, okay, cool. You definitely fucked me up, but it's on me to go and do the healing work for that.
Yeah, exactly right.
A lot of people can positively try to bypass. They're just doing the best they could. They were just doing the best they knew. Like they were just shown that from their parents. It's like, and they still fucking bet you. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like we can't bypass that. That's still a reality. Yeah. It's still something you experience. That's it. And that's trauma, right? So my trauma was a lot more subtle because it was ultimately a form of emotional abuse. So I experienced the definition of conditional love, and so growing up, my core wounding was, I'm not good enough as I am. Yeah, I'm not enough as I am. Yeah, those were my beliefs. Love, right? 100%. Sort of stuff. And so how that showed up was looking for love. Like was looking for love externally, everywhere.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to find that within myself.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was the class clown. Like I said, that was an adaptation. These are sort of survival adaptations that we create in order to get the needs met that we never had met in the way we needed them met as a kid.
Yeah.
We will adapt. This is what we call survival adaptations.
Yeah.
But the human body will find a way to get that need met if we can't meet it within ourselves.
Yeah.
Even if it's, an external resource. So as an adult, these adaptations become what we call maladaptations. Yeah. We get to a point where they don't work for us anymore.
And manifest into
they served us back then. But they definitely don't as a fucking 30-year-old man, especially when you're trying to fucking date and relate. Because I was just I kept unconsciously, so people might relate with this. Like, I don't know, have a think about your relational patterns. Your relational patterns will always show you so much about your, what I call attachment contortions or distortions that you had as a child.
Yeah.
So I would always find myself in relationships with like the unavailable woman or the maybe or the I'll be with you if X, Y, and Z. Like I had to prove myself that I'm fucking dating mum, right?
Yeah.
That was what was familiar.
Yeah.
That was the attachment that I was unconsciously familiar to me. So I'd unconsciously go and seek that out.
Yeah.
And it would fucking infuriate me. I'm like, why the fuck do I keep recreating the same situation?
All women are the same. What the fuck's going on here, right? Yeah.
Until I started learning about this stuff, and I was like, oh, fuck, it's a me thing.
What is the common denominator in these 10 situations? Yeah.
And then the flip of that was I'd also often find myself in relationships with like just the most beautiful, loving woman, like just so open, unconditional love, accepted me as I am, who I was, and I'd fucking run the other way.
Self-sabotage.
Yeah, or just blow it up because I'm like, I don't know how to be with it. It's so unfamiliar.
Yeah, this
I have no idea how to.
I have no idea what's going on here.
I'm nervous as freaking out.
Fuck up as bad as I can.
Exactly, and blow it up. Yeah, that started me on then healing all my fucking twisted, fucked up mummy wounds, basically.
Yeah.
And just led me, I guess, to where I am now. Which has been the most incredible journey, bro. Like, I genuinely the best thing about this work, this might fuck some people up.
Let's fucking do it.
Is most people aren't actually them. They're not actually who they think they are. Most people on this planet are a conditioned and contorted version of who they've thought they've had to become at some point in time in order to survive.
Yes.
And that's just it's become their identity. It's just who they think they are.
I'll talk a little bit about this, and tell me if this is like on the same track, but it's like the dynamic between the pretend, the negative, and the authentic self, right? And showing up as a person that they perceive the world needs them to be, or they have to be to get their needs met.
Yeah,
as opposed
100%.
to actually doing what feels good for them, because that might actually then bring on judgment, or they have that fear of abandonment, or fear of not having love because of it.
Yeah, and it's almost always unconscious.
Yeah.
So yeah, like for me, my mask was the nice guy. My mask was the joker. My mask was if you sat here and asked me, 5 years ago, who's Drew, I'd be like, well, who does Ben want me or need me to be in order for me to leave this experience with him going, fuck, Drew's a good cat.
Everyone liked me, right?
Yeah, everyone liked me, everybody loved me. And dude, like, fuck, I get my, like, you know how you get Facebook memories pop up?
Yeah, dude.
I get just so humbled every day. Like, just literal, like, cries for, like, love. Like, just love me. Like, just lies. Shit. I just lie about shit. Just make shit up for people just to think I was living a very different life to what I was.
Cue social media.
Yeah, right? Literally. Oh, dude,
the
don't get me
reel.
started, 100%.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like I've really done my time in the addiction space, and I've loved it. I've definitely made and left a huge impact and a mark on that space. But something I'm really passionate about now is really helping people just return to their authentic self, reconnect to their authentic self, their truth, who they really are underneath this conditioned crust of who they once thought they had to become.
Yes.
Or they were told they had to become, or they were told who they couldn't be, or how they couldn't show up, or what wasn't safe to express, or what wasn't safe to share, or speak, or be in those moments. And that's everyone.
Yeah.
It's absolutely everyone. And so, it's fascinating, man. I love working with developmental trauma. I find it so interesting. I just think the resilience of humans, full stop, is fucking fascinating. And also, I just want to put a bit of a stamp on this. Like, we cannot compare experiences. Like, one person's quote-unquote trauma can literally be like, you were just so fucking excited about dad coming home to play with you after work, and he had a fucking shit day. And you were, like, really fucking G'd up for your old man to come home and throw the ball around with you, and he kind of like just pushed you to the side and dismissed you and sat down and cracked a can and turned the telly on. And in that moment, you had just imprinted this sensory, emotional imprint of like rejection, let's say, in that moment. And that created the core wounding of whatever. I'm not good enough, or I'm not wanted, or I'm not, like insert whatever you've made that mean. We cannot separate our primary caregiver's feelings and emotions, and particularly in those formative years 0 to 7, from our own. So we have to make it mean something about us.
Right, we attach them.
We can't be like, oh, dad's just having a shit day, or mum's just being a dick. It's like, that's
logical. That's way too logical. Don't bring me that shit.
Because we have to. Gabriel talks about this all the time. If any child is given the opportunity to choose attachment over authenticity, the child will always 100% of the time choose attachment. Because attachment means survival.
Yeah.
It literally means survival. Like, if I don't choose that, I potentially won't live.
Yeah.
I won't get love. I won't be safe.
Yeah.
And I will die.
Yeah.
And so it's just this continual contortion of who we were always meant to be into someone we just thought we had to become. And it's fucking wild, man.
I think the beautiful thing, and this is what a lot of people don't understand. So you said there that you healed your daddy wounds.
Yeah.
And you started to heal your mummy wounds. And like, you were like, oh, there's got to be something there. Like, this shit doesn't stop. When you start
I'm still peeling back layers.
when you peel that back like the first time, bro, you've just opened up a can of worms. Pandora's box has been opened. Like, this journey of personal development, people think they go to one seminar and they fucking like, I'm healed, or look at me, I'm fucking all enlightened. But it's literally a lifelong journey of unraveling all this shit that has happened through the beginning of our lives, right?
Yeah, well, the way I explain it is that it's the journey of self is the same as like evolution. There's no end point to evolution. We're just continually evolving.
Yeah.
Where we need to be careful is, not careful. It worked for me for a long time, for a few years. A lot of my driver of I could almost go as far as to say I got addicted to personal growth and development. Because it was coming from a wounding, and the driving force was coming from a wounding of I'm broken and I need fixing.
Yeah, it's like one of the two drivers of motivation, right?
Yeah.
Pain or pleasure.
Yeah.
But 99% of us are moving away from pain.
Yeah. So it was like, I'm broken, I need fixing. Where's the next workshop? Where's the next mentor? Where's the next retreat?
I can relate, brother.
And so it was amazing for a while because it got me into a lot of places that I definitely needed to get into. But then I noticed that, and then I also healed that wound, and then the whole orientation shifted. So now I still work on myself. I've still got an incredible mentor and teacher that I've been working with for like 3 years.
Yes.
And I see her every couple of weeks. Like, we're also great friends. She's literally staying at my house at the moment.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm still peeling back layers of stuff, but it's coming from a place of I'm just genuinely interested of just like what's still there and how much more of my authentic self can I return to, and can I become? And it just comes from a place of more just it's much more still and chill and just like curious. It's more of a curious vibe now rather than a like rushed, frantic,
like
I need to fucking heal immediately type energy. It's like, oh, this is just fun now.
Yeah.
And interesting.
Part of the enjoyable life experience.
So many of the deep-seated like emotions have left my body, like the amount of tears I've let go of, the amount of anger I've let go of, like so much of that deep, heavy, dense shit has left my body over the years. And now it's more just, it's much more just interesting. And it's just this is a curiosity now, which I fucking love about it.
The driver behind it's changed, obviously.
Oh, completely. Yeah. And that's what I say about everything. Like, you know, with anything, it's the relationship we have with the thing. Like, where are we operating from when we're engaging in whatever that thing is? Is it coming from a place of like need? I need that thing from outside of myself to fill a void within me that I don't know how to fill myself. Yeah. Or is it coming from a place of like, there's just a genuine curiosity of wanting to do that or create that or be that. Yeah.
That's actually something I'd like to touch on a bit further around the addiction side of things. Is for a lot of people, and I've been told this as well, that you know you move from one addiction to another, even if it's from drugs to like something healthier, like training in the gym or whatever. Where do you, I guess, you start to determine whether, okay, is this something I'm using as a coping mechanism, or is this actually something that I'm using to benefit myself?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess you've just got to kind of tune in with yourself and ask yourself that question. It's super common, man, and it's super normal. And also, we're human. Like, we've got to allow some space to be fucking human. Like, I'm not perfect. There's still days where I choose to check the fuck out. But I do it from a place of conscious choice now.
Yeah, I'm not numbing, I'm doing this.
Yeah, I'm choosing to just check the fuck out right now. Yeah, man, I guess it's a natural evolution, and the more attuned you become to yourself, you'll start to realize and learn that, you know, maybe you are operating from some wounding. Yeah. And that's for a period of time, sometimes that's okay. Like, fuck. Going to the gym fucking 3 times a day is better than fucking, you know, smoking a G of crack every day. You know, like, choose your battles, right? Choose your battles, you know? You know, like, eat the packet of Tim Tams if you were drinking a bottle of vodka a day. Yeah. Or, like, you know, it's fucking, there's a scale, man. There's a spectrum. Right? You know, it's a spectrum. Yeah. And I don't know about you, bro, but I'm not here to be perfect. Nah. I don't want to be perfect. It bores the fuck out of me. You know, it doesn't exist as well. I don't actually believe that exists. Yeah. You know, the enlightened one, like, I think that's how boring. I don't want to be that dude. Like, I embrace a lot of, I don't know, like, I can be a real fucking cunt. Let's put it that way. But where in the past it used to be kind of damaging and a protective mechanism, it's now integrated, and it's like, it's a part of me that I love. Yeah. It's a part of me that I can use to my advantage. It's a part of me that can be really like fucking discerning. The part of me that can be really like, it can hold really like strong boundaries. It's a part of me that like, I enjoy. Yes. And so serves you now, right? Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And so what I'm trying to get at, I guess, is that there's many, many different varying parts of our psyche that we can have maybe an aversion to, or don't necessarily serve us at some point in our life, but with the work and with integrating it in different ways and creating a different relationship to it, we can actually then sometimes turn some of these things into attributes, rather than it being a bit of like a downfall or a character defect or whatever you want to fucking call it. Yeah. Like, yeah, I know something I love using is becoming really popular in the psychotherapy space is parts work.
Okay.
So IFS is becoming really popular. IFS is I guess it's a psychotherapy based modality that a guy called Richard Swartz created. His book is really good for anyone that wants to read it, called No Bad Parts. But you were kind of talking before, I can't remember what you worded it, but something in higher self. What did you call it?
Maybe pretend authentic?
No? Yeah, something like so my version of that, like parts work 101, I'd break down into like the ego and the higher self.
Yeah, like how you're actually showing up with it.
Yeah, totally. And so the ego is a part of us. Under the umbrella of the ego, there's thousands of different parts that make up our psyche.
Yeah.
But where the problem lies is we reject so many parts of ourselves that we really don't like.
Yeah.
Or that we think don't serve us, or that keep creating a particular pattern of behavior. And where parts work is really interesting is you can actually start to almost like dialogue with these particular parts and communicate with these parts and get a lot more curious about these parts.
Yes.
And start to understand these parts.
Yeah. Where they come from and all that sort of stuff.
100%.
Right? Yeah. What their purpose is and how they protect
the role they play. And you nailed it. Yeah. And what we 9 times out of 10 what we find is that it's just an old part that was created when we were younger that served to protect us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Protect us from hurt, protect us from pain. And yeah, it's a really, really fucking cool modality. It's a really cool and fun way to sort of engage with a lot of these things that, again, that we've rejected. And that's one of the biggest problems in, I guess, just healing spaces full stop, or trying to heal is, say there's a particular pattern that comes up. I'm trying to think of something. Let's say like a people pleaser is super common. I work with that a lot. And they're like, hate it, right? They're like, I hate that I people please, or I hate that
for it, right?
Yeah, and like they try to shove it in the fucking corner, or like I really fucking hate that I keep doing this thing. It's like, well, what if you could not hate it, and let's try to like understand it. How does this part think it is actually serving you? What role does it think it's playing in your life? Let's try and explore it a little bit. Like, let's explore it that way. And obviously, like, it's a whole modality and there's a process to it. But you eventually get to a point where you can either, like, these parts will talk back and they'll be like, you can ask them, like, do you actually like the role that you play? 9 times out of 10, they're like, fuck no, I'm so bored, or I'm tired, or I'm exhausted. I'm over this. Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. Yeah. But it was the only way I knew how to get you usually love or safety as a kid.
Right.
This was the only pathway that I could create at that time for you. And so this is why I exist. This is why this part exists. And so usually we can either ask it if it wants to like take up another role, and what would that be? Or is it even just open to starting to trust that it can just take a bit more of a back seat.
Yeah, like integrate
and let go of the steering wheel for a little bit. Exactly. Yeah. And so we start to loosen a lot of these conditioned parts or adaptations that we've created growing up.
Yeah.
That create a lot of distortion when we're fucking older, when we're, usually in our 30s is when we sort of hit particular walls in our life. It usually comes through either addiction or relating is probably where we really start to see some of our shit.
Yeah.
Breakups definitely a huge catalyst for a lot of people. Yeah. Huge catalyst.
Well, generally what comes on the back end of a breakup, it's like, okay, well, I'm going to get revenge by either getting revenge body, or I'm going to fuck as many girls as I can, or I'm going to go and fucking absolutely snort myself stupid so I don't have to feel the pain until I find another girl that's willing to pull up with my shit. Yeah. And then I end up in that same pattern, back to all the girls are the same, right? It's like, it's their fault, not mine.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's the same for women, 100%. Yeah. My partner's a incredible, woman's relationship coach, and yes, it's exactly the same. Yeah. It's the same shit. at some point we've got to take a look inside and realize, like you said, like, oh fuck, I'm the common denominator here.
Who's really looking back at you when you look in the mirror?
Am I willing to do something about this?
Yeah.
And like I said, man, at the start, before we even hit record, like, this shit takes fucking work, bro. This is the path least traveled. This is why, like, most people on the planet, like, will never choose the pathway that maybe you or I have walked. And unfortunately, you know, I know so many people that would have taken themselves out of the game because that's too hard and too scary and too painful.
And they want to sit with that shit for what actually comes up, right?
Yeah. And so I don't try to sit here and sprinkle glitter on shit, man, and make this out like this is all fun and games and sunshines and rainbows and love and light, because it's not.
Yeah, and there's no fucking quick fix either.
There's no quick fix.
There's no magic pill.
That's I legit thought I was going to go to rehab and someone was going to give me a magic. Oh, okay, they kind of did.
That was called stereotypical, bro. And I put you to sleep.
Yeah. I thought they were going to give me some sort of magic pill and send me on my way, and that was it. It would be done. And fucking, you know, whatever it is, 6, 7, 8 years later, I'm sitting here and still learning and still growing. But it takes fucking work, bro.
Yeah, man.
And, you know, I say this all the time. It takes actually doing something. Like, I don't believe knowledge is power at all. It's one of the biggest
podcast. Is that
bullshit. Yeah. Sorry for everyone that's listening to this podcast. Just listening to a fucking podcast isn't gonna help you.
Yeah.
It'll help you gain awareness, and it'll help you gain understanding, and it'll help you break down stigma. It'll help you break down shame. It'll give you cognitive understanding. But I'm a firm believer in fucking embodiment, man. Yeah, and like, knowing something doesn't mean shit. Knowing something is not power, it's potential power. The knowledge in action, so the doing, like, that is where the rubber meets the road.
Yep.
And we've got to actually fucking do some shit. And that's why I guess so many of my clients get such amazing results, is because I'm not a talk therapist. I don't sit here and I've had clients that have come and worked with me and they've been in fucking talk therapy for like 30 years and they're like, holy fuck, I've got more out of you in one session than I have in fucking 30 years. Yep. A lot of the work that I do now is somatic based trauma release work. So trained in various like trauma release based somatic trauma release based modalities. And, you know, during all of our sessions, obviously a lot of we're making the unconscious conscious. So one of my favorite quotes is Carl Jung: "Until we make the unconscious conscious, it will rule our life, and we'll call it fate."
Yeah,
which is a fucking dope quote. And and so I'll sit down and I take a lot of notes during my client sessions, and then I'll send them the work. Here's your work. Here's all the things I want you to actually go and do that are going to implement and integrate what you've just learnt in our session. And that's where shit shifts. Obviously in our sessions as well, we move a lot of stuck and trapped emotions and feelings and sensations and experiences, undigested life experiences, as I said, I like to call them. Then I will also give them work outside of that, which is like, go and you've got to do some stuff outside of these sessions.
Yeah, fucking get out of the comfort zone, do the thing.
And that's also a good point, bro. Like, I'm really of the adage of like 100% when I'm in session with some clients, there's definitely moments where I have to and can only will be able to move something if I take them in through a particular process, with a lot of safety. Like they really need to be held in order to move a particular experience with a lot of love and a lot of compassion and creating a very safe space.
Yeah, man.
But I'm also of the adage of like, sometimes you've just got to go and do the fucking scary thing, realize you didn't die, And in that process, you expand your capacity. So that's all we're ever really trying to do, is we're expanding our window of tolerance.
Yeah.
So with all the modalities I'm trained in, or let's say these practices, the exercises I'm giving people, is like our window of tolerance or our capacity is like fucking naught when we start this, right? Like anything can throw us off balance.
I get
like,
triggered by a fucking
the
sneeze.
smallest little fucking trigger
Yeah.
will set us off.
He
And
didn't smile back at me on
yeah,
the footpath.
Yeah, fuck, no one loves me, or something like that.
Yeah.
And then we'll, through a different process, or say some of that parts work that I was talking about, or some more somatic based body work that I do, we'll free something, and the capacity grows. And so that trigger might come back into our world, and it doesn't hold the charge anymore. It's where we're at a place of neutrality.
Yeah.
And so our window of tolerance has grown.
Yeah.
And so that's all we're trying to do, is just expand our capacity to ultimately be with life, to be with everything, to be with whatever life throws at us. Like, life is always going to life.
Yeah.
Shit happens. People die.
Ain't that the truth?
Like, people die. Shit happens. Like, there's some shitty things that happen in life. It's just a part of being a human being.
Yeah.
But it's up to our window of tolerance as to how we respond.
Yeah, man.
Rather than react.
To
what's going on to us in that moment. And unfortunately, because so many people's window of tolerance is next to fucking nothing, they're just stuck in survival mode.
Yeah.
Rational part of the brain's shut off if you're in survival mode. And so you're just reacting to life. You're just at the fucking whim of life. And that sucks, man. Most people are just surviving, not, fucking thriving.
Been there.
Whereas if we can start to expand this capacity and start to realize that we can be with anything and everything, whether it's joy and ultimate pleasure and ecstasy, or deep-seated hurt and grief and pain and suffering and hatred and rage, and like all of these different states and emotions, it's like, oh fuck, it doesn't really matter what comes my way. Like, I'm good.
I'm sweet still.
I've got me.
But did you die?
Yeah. Did you die? It's like, like sometimes I'll give clients just like weird challenges. Like, it's just simple as like go live on your Instagram or something.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, it's because, that's fucking scary. Like, for someone like you and I, right? I would probably be doing it for years. I've been doing it for fucking years.
I remember the first time that you did it, right?
Oh, dude, I thought I was going to die.
What about if they think this
Especially being a people pleaser.
Yeah. What if I don't have enough people in there? That means that no one loves me.
Yeah, exactly. Or I've got to say all the right things so that they love me, they like me. I was the ultimate people pleaser, man. I work with so many people pleasers. It's so fucking common. People pleasing and addiction fucking go hand in hand.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's like sometimes we just got to do the hard thing, like jump out of the airplane, realize we didn't die, and go, oh holy fuck! Actually, I'm a fucking gangster. I'm a badass. I'm fierce. That was a beautiful thing came through in a session I had with a client yesterday.
Yeah. She's
always had to pretend, or like to, again, her conditioning was to be quiet, to be the suppressed woman, unfortunately. And we were doing this particular practice, and she was like, her whole body's like, her whole somatic expression changed, and she was like sitting upright, and she's like expanded her spine, and she's like, I'm actually fucking fierce. Like, I'm a fierce, like I kick ass. I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, yes you do.
Fuck yeah, dude. That's fucking cool, hey.
It's dope. It's just just seeing those little shifts, man, is what brings me joy, bro. So yeah, man, I don't know if you've got any questions, but that's kind of me. It's my journey. It's my story. That's why I'm passionate about this shit. I love just trying to deliver it in a way that's actually digestible rather than like super clinical.
Yeah, so fucking factual instead of...
It can be hard to understand sometimes when it's super clinical.
Yeah. We can do one of those another time anyway, bro.
I never seen it go around too.
It's more for me at this point. Fuck everyone else. Yeah.
Love it.
No, well, one thing I do want to ask is, because obviously with your journey, you tried so many different avenues before you actually got to a place where you felt confident that things were working for you. So if you had to go back and start that journey all over again, what would be the first thing that you'd do for someone that might be, I guess, beginning that journey of personal development, or struggling with addiction, or struggling with the trauma and not knowing where to go? Because, I mean, there's so much information out there that it becomes misinformation. It can become so fucking confusing. And for a lot of people, they probably feel like they do the thing and they're not getting the result. Right?
Yeah,
and obviously,
totally.
they've got to understand instant gratification just fucks everything up. It's like you've got to actually continue to do the work. But for you, what would be the first thing that you'd go back and do if you had your time again and had to really come out of that hole that you're in, bro?
Oh, man. I mean, I don't know if I'd change anything because obviously everything's been fucking perfect as it is, but that's a bit of an ethereal answer.
Yeah.
Environment, to start with, is everything.
Okay.
I think people really need to start with their environment. People don't understand that if you're living if you're living in an environment that is still creating the same, let's say, nervous system response that you experienced as a kid, you're basically re-traumatizing yourself.
Right.
So if you'll say, like, maybe you're still living at home with parents, or you're in a relationship that's unhealthy, and again, that it mirrors that attachment as a child, your body remembers.
Yeah.
Your body keeps a score. Bessel van der Kolk, right? Like the title of, you've probably got it up there somewhere. Yeah.
Either that or it's on order. I was bought this book the other day. The body keeps the score right there.
Yeah. It's the best title because the whether you remember, it doesn't matter. The body remembers.
Yeah.
So if you're in an environment that's consistently and continually creating that same trigger for yourself, it's very, 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 very almost impossible to heal inside of an environment that's creating that same experience for you. So it's like starting with environment first and foremost, I think, is so important. I talk a lot about the bottom up approach to healing rather than top down approach to healing. Like if I got put in front of, let's say, my mentor who I work with now, I would have saved myself a lot of fucking bullshit along the way. But I also kind of think I needed to go through some of that process. Like maybe I wasn't ready for some of that stuff at that time.
I 100% wholeheartedly agree with what you just
said.
Yeah.
You know, like I did some of the basic shit, and I do call it basic, but you know, like the Tony Robbins-y stuff and the sort of rah-rah personal development type shit. And for me, like I just got community out of that, to be honest. A lot of community was really helpful.
Well, that's a big thing. Like
just basic routines, bro, like to start with. But yeah, definitely starting to recognize that any approach to healing that is a what we would call a top-down approach to healing. So traditional psychotherapies, traditional psychology, cognitive based approaches to healing will not fucking work. It's a band-aid. Cognitive approaches to healing. I see that you've got, I want to cross it off, NLP course up there.
Yeah.
I want to cross it off. I fucking hate NLP.
We need to have a conversation. I'm absorbing all this, bro. No way.
Yeah. So like cognitive based approaches to healing, it's like trying to fucking put a cast on your arm when you've got a broken leg.
Putting bulletproof vest on and shoot yourself in the head.
It's not in here, literally. The problem isn't of the mind, it's of the body.
Yeah, and when you say not of the mind, obviously it could be within the head, but it's the body of a whole.
Oh, you'll get the symptoms in the fucking head, 100%. All the symptoms of the trauma or all these undigested life experiences.
Yeah.
But then this is science, so this is proven, this is scientific.
100%.
So this is all to do with our vagus nerve. 80% of our feedback system and neurofeedback is coming up from our body to our mind.
Right.
So it's actually our feelings and our sensationary experiences that are creating the thoughts.
So this is what you
a lot of people think, a lot of people think it's thoughts creating feelings. Other way around.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I would do differently, is start working with someone who understands somatic based healing.
Yeah. And so what could be some modalities around that would, I guess, be accessible, pretty accessible to most people?
So some of the most common are somatic experiencing, which is Peter Levine's modality.
Yeah.
Compassionate inquiry, which is Gabor Mate's modality.
Yeah.
Embodied processing, shout out to my business partners. So my business partners, Matt Kay and Ryan Hassan, they started what's called the Center for Healing.
Okay.
They've got a fucking dope modality called embodied processing.
Yeah,
it's like the perfect culmination of like all of these in one. So like polyvagal theory, things like that, EMDR, all of that sort of stuff. So their modality, embodied processing, is phenomenal, and it's blowing up. It's going crazy. So definitely would recommend that sort of stuff. Embodied processing, EMDR is reasonably popular. It can be a bit hectic, but it's still good.
What was that, EMDR?
EMDR. Yeah. Again, like, just to start with, just learning how to get back into the body. Like, not even like working on the trauma. Yeah. Right? Like, just start with just learning how to just kind of, learning how to feel, man. Learning how to identify fucking feelings. Yeah. Learning how to identify your own needs. Yeah. And that can be like basic stuff. Like, that's why people really enjoy things like breathwork. Breathwork's become really popular, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And it's because for a lot of people, it helps them get into their body, out of their head into their body. Yeah. And that's what I would call a more active form of stillness. Yeah. I guess you could call it. Yeah. Like, I don't like meditation personally. I don't rate meditation at all. Yeah. I don't really like. I think for a lot of people that have a super states of the nervous system, you have your parasympathetic nervous system is when you're rest and digest, and sympathetic is when you're like really go. There's all sorts of different states of our nervous system, but I say for people that have experienced a lot, and this is I say the same thing about ice bath. For a lot of people that have experienced, they have that really jacked nervous system. To ask someone to sit fucking still and meditate for 10 minutes is torture. That's like the worst thing you could ask someone in that state to do. It's fucking hell. So it's finding other ways to get into the body. It could be dance. It could be just I don't know, just putting some music on and moving around. It can be just touch, tapping. Yeah. Tapping's quite popular. Shaking, just little movements. Yeah. I've got an arsenal of these things all on. If you go through to my Instagram,
I'll link all that.
I've got all sorts of different resources. Where was I going with that? But just like learning how to get in touch with your body again. Yeah. Oh, ice baths, I think is what I was going to say. It's the same. If you don't actually know what you're doing with a fucking ice bath, they become so mainstream these days. Most people don't realize that because they're so fucking jacked all the time, that's playing into that same nervous system response by getting into an ice bath. So
when you say that,
they're reinforcing, 100%. So they're just reinforcing that same loop and that same hit. They're just getting it out of an ice bath. Yeah. Rather than however else they might have used to have got that hit or that kick. Yeah. Yeah. And so there's depending again on particular people's nervous system predisposition, there's some stuff that I really wouldn't recommend. Yep. Like there's be people, depending who lands in front of me, they've been like, cool, meditation is not for you. You should also avoid an ice bath.
Don't do the thing. Yeah.
Don't follow all the fads, particularly if you're not held properly in some of those environments. Yeah. Ice baths can be amazing, but you've got to know and learn how to actually breathe in those experiences, how to downregulate the nerves. So the whole point of an ice bath is to find that place of homeostasis, so regulation, whilst the body is freaking the fuck out.
The stress, right?
Yeah.
And it's that exposure therapy, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But again, most people or a lot of people that, it's a fad now and it's not facilitated properly, just throwing themselves in an ice bath and they're sitting there for a minute going, like the whole body is just, re-traumatizing themselves, replaying out that
Just
super
reinforcing that
sympathetic
sympathetic.
fucking response
Yeah.
and jumping out and going, oh, what a rush. Let's do that again. So again, time and a place, like all of these things have their place. It's like, just fucking find what works for you, man.
Yeah, man.
And that's, I'm a firm believer of as well. It's like, find what works for you, trust the nudges, follow the fucking breadcrumbs. If anything that I've said has resonated, dope, reach out. If you're listening to me and you're like, this dude's talking a fucking crock of shit, cool, I'm not your person. Like,
Tune
tune out.
Internet,
Go
bro.
follow another pathway.
Yeah.
I just share what has worked for me,
man.
first and foremost, and what has worked for a lot of my clients. But yeah, definitely an answer to your question would be like, start to work towards a much more of a orientation of this bottom up approach to healing, starting to work with the body versus the mind. Because if you're working with the mind, you're just slapping band-aids. That's why people sit and talk therapy for 30 years and they just talk about the same shit, rinse and repeat.
No, I feel that.
They're not given any tools. They're just that's also can actually make things worse because they can become very cognitively aware of their problems or their issues. So they've made the unconscious conscious.
Yeah.
But then they're not given anything or any tools or any processes to go in and free themselves from what they've now become aware of. And so they've got the awareness and it's just driving them crazy because they don't have anything to do with it.
Yeah.
Like, don't have anything to move it, to process it, to heal it. They just sit in this fucking state of perpetuated stress and angst and frustration. And it just makes things worse.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Yeah.
And what about if there were like people that want to look into the literature around this, so around trauma, around addiction, or even around the bottom up approach that you were speaking about? What books would you recommend?
Yeah, for sure. Myth of Normal.
Yeah.
Gabor Mate, I feel like that's kind of like the Bible of life.
Yeah.
But that's fucking chunky, man. Like
it's a big one.
It's a chunky
that only just
read.
arrived, so that's gonna be like on the next, I reckon.
It's a dope book. It's kind of Gabor's just kind of like put all of his work into one.
Okay.
So
it's gonna be a heavy read.
Yeah, it is chunky. He's written it with his son. We've interviewed his son a few times. So he purposely wrote it with his son so that his son could kind of like add a bit more of a like mainstream approach to it. Like just
make it relatable.
Yeah, make it a little bit more relatable. Man, just books in general that I'd recommend, or books orientated towards trauma.
Let's get your top 5. So
Myth of Normal is fucking amazing.
Yeah,
it's dope, but it is chunky. It's heavy, and it's I don't know. Sometimes it can be difficult to get your head around. One that I love all of Nicole LaPera's books.
Yes. Yep.
They're amazing. Particularly, I'd jump straight to her new book, How to Be the Love You Seek.
Yeah.
It's all about basically what I've been speaking about, which is
that's
attachment.
Holistic psychologist, right?
Yeah.
She's
Holistic psychologist.
She's cool, man.
She's dope. Her recent book, How to Be the Love You Seek, is all about what I've been talking about, which is this how we develop these attachment sort of adaptations as a result of our upbringing and how that shows up in our relationships.
Yep.
So that's something I've been recommending a lot recently. My number one go-to book of all time is a book called Conversations with God.
Yeah, I actually just bought that for later.
Fucking love it.
Yeah,
it's
I think you might recommend it.
Yeah, I think I did. It's so good.
Yeah.
For anyone listening, it's not religious in any way, shape, or form. It's just read the book. Another book I always recommend is a beautiful book written by a dude called, I can't remember his name, but it's called How to Love Yourself Like Your Life Depends on It.
Okay.
It's fucking cool. It's short. It's written in a way that only a dude could write, it's really matter of fact, to the point, and super practical.
Yeah, we like that.
Yeah,
We like that. Makes it easier to
It's
digest.
like that.
Big words on the page too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, pictures,
yeah,
colouring in as well.
Yeah.
But it's basically just about him. He went through the really shocked separation and divorce, and he had to go through this process of learning how to love himself.
Yeah.
So that's a really beautiful book. It's really cool. It's amazing, powerful. What about The Alchemist is always amazing.
Yeah.
It's technically fiction, but just
I've
the
actually
way
heard
it's
this,
written.
right? So it's a fictional book.
It's a fictional book,
Yeah.
but it's written in a way that there's just beautiful life lessons,
Lots of underlying
weaved
messages,
into the book.
Yeah.
Conversations with God, definitely. How to you love yourself like your life depends on it. How to be the love you seek. For any dudes that resonate with being a nice guy, No More Mr. Nice Guy
Okay.
by David Glover.
Yeah.
It'll fuck you up. Yeah, if you're a dude listening to this, and I know a lot of chicks that have actually read it as well, and you resonate with being a bit of a nice guy or a people pleaser, read that book. That's powerful. No Bad Parts.
Yep.
As I mentioned.
That's one I want to read, because that sounds like a really cool
it's really good
modality as well.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, Internal Family Systems is dope.
Yeah.
I use it a lot. That'd be my go-tos, I think.
Awesome, brother.
Yeah.
Well, bro, thanks very much for coming on, man.
Thanks for having me, bro.
I want to chat. And also, for people that want to find you, where can they find you? Obviously, I'll put all the links below.
IG.
Yeah,
best place is just to find me on Instagram at Drew_Wild. You can find me on Facebook as well, Drew Wild.
Yeah.
Buzz me. I'm super engaged in my inbox. I love chatting with people.
Yeah.
And just providing as many resources as I can. So if anything's come up, or you've got questions, or you want me to expand on anything else, or send different resources and things, I've got arsenal of stuff. So
Sick.
hit me up.